Hello, Millikan Rams, and welcome to Corydon Plugged In. I'm your host, Chance Paxton, and well, we've been off the air for quite some time. Our last episode was before winter break, and now we're coming back in the new decade, 2020. We're going to have a longer show with more stories and hopefully more guests so that we can interview. I hope you enjoy your stay, and I hope you learn some more stuff about Long Beach and the Millikan community. Before we can look at the news of this new decade, let's look back at the past and reminisce of the memories and the events that brought us here. Let's start off with the year that kicked off the decade, 2010. Such a revolutionary year that brought us technological advancements and human innovations. To kick off this new decade, Apple released their first tablet computer, the iPad, which made work and pleasure a lot more interesting. On December 8th, humans took to the stars again when SpaceX, for the second time, released the SpaceX Dragon. SpaceX then became the first ever privately held company to launch, orbit, and recover a spacecraft. On December 22nd, former President Obama repealed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which was a 17-year-old policy that banned homosexuals from openly serving in the military. This was a great boost for the homosexual community. And to close off 2010, Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook, was named Person of the Year by Time magazine. And in 2010, we saw feats in animation, with Toy Story 3, How to Train Your Dragon, and Despicable Me all coming out. While 2010 was such a great start to the decade, 2011 was rife with tragedy, with a 9.0 earthquake dotting the border of Japan, causing a tsunami that created the second most devastating nuclear earthquake at the Fukushima nuclear plant. While tragedy struck overseas, Americans finally felt that the victims of 9/11 were avenged when, on May 2nd, Osama bin Laden, the suspected leader behind the 9/11 attacks, was struck down. On April 17th, television was completely revolutionized with the release of Game of Thrones on HBO, the series that was based on the Song of Ice and Fire books by George R.R. Martin. On March 4th, amidst allegations of voter fraud, Vladimir Putin wins his 9th year in the presidential Russian office. And for more lighthearted fun, in WrestleMania 28, John Cena went up against The Rock. The Rock won in the fight known as the Once in a Lifetime. And getting back to presidential elections, Obama won his second term against Mitt Romney. And on July 15th, 2012, Psy took the world by storm by releasing Gangnam Style, becoming the most viewed YouTube video of all time. Despacito. And presidential cycles weren't the only things being ended and restarted. The Mayan calendar was set to end on December 21st, 2012. And with that, the end of the world. People really thought that the end of the world was upon us. It didn't. We're alive. And to prove that the world didn't end, on March 13th, Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio is elected as the new pope, with the papal name Pope Francis. And with the cycle of elections, on March 14th, Xi Jinping is voted as the next leader of China. And with all this royalty going around, Lorde releases her new debut song, Royals, Cat. No. And on July 12th, Malala changes the world by speaking to the United Nations and calling for worldwide education for women. And to close off the year, Breaking Bad concluded its series and Pharrell Williams released his new song, Happy. Now we move on to 2014, a very busy year with both its ups and downs. On February 18th, Ukraine began its revolution, with many protesters attacking the capital. On March 29th, the first same-sex couples were being married in the United Kingdom after the passing of the Marriage Act of 2013. On August 19th, an ominous foreshadowing of what climate change may become, NASA found that the Aral Sea had completely dried up. And 2 years after people thought that the world was ending, in 2014 an asteroid nearly collided with the Earth, only missing by 28,500 miles. That sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it got really close. And to go with the theme of the world ending, Stephen Hawking warned the human race that artificial intelligence might drive it to extinction. But despite the ominous messaging of the world ending, we got some pretty good movies, such as the Lego Movie, Whiplash, and the end of the Hobbit trilogy, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. While 2014 was a very scary and ominous year, 2015 was much more relaxed and definitely was a step in the right direction. On June 15th, the Magna Carta, the document that is said to birth modern democracy, turned 800 years old. And to go with the theme of democracy, on September 9th, 2015, Queen Elizabeth II became the longest reigning British monarch of all time, and became the longest reigning female monarch in the history of mankind. And while Queen Elizabeth II continues to be the queen, Kobe Bryant decided to retire from the NBA. While Kobe Bryant retires, Adele made her new hit song, Hello, becoming the first song to reach over 1 million downloads in the first week alone. And on August 24th, Stephen Hawking proposed his new theories on black holes. 2015 also revitalized a lot of the intellectual properties that we've grown to know and love, including Star Wars and Jurassic World. In 2016, Leonardo DiCaprio finally won his first Oscar with the release of The Revenant. Following his success, Bill Gates was finally labeled as the richest man in the world. While Bill Gates was labeled the richest man in the world, Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning retires from the NFL. And to follow the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC releases Batman v Superman with mixed reviews. And justice was finally served as Bill Cosby stood trial for his sexual assault allegations. And in 2016, the majority of the United Kingdom decided to leave the European Union. And on the topic of politics, Donald Trump was elected as the 45th President of the United States of America. Next, we move on to 2017, a very eventful year, starting off with Donald Trump being inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States of America. Speaking of Donald Trump, the U.S. federal judge blocked Donald Trump's decision to block the transgender community from joining the military. On the topic of politics, the UN condemns North Korean missile tests during this time. And coming back to the political climate of the United States, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia shook political climates by bringing neo-Nazis and white supremacists into the light and publicly speaking on political matters. In other news, the USGS reported that some glaciers in Montana receded by 85% in the last 50 years. But it's not all doom and gloom for nature as Tesla releases the Model 3, the first mass-marketed electric car. And 2018 brought us a very eventful and a more fun year. To kick us off, on February 6th, SpaceX launches the Falcon Heavy, the heaviest rocket to reach space. And on March 5th, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, for the first time since his rise to power, decided to discuss peace with South Korean officials at Pyeongchang. And on April 14th, Beyoncé is the first black woman to be headlined on Coachella. And it was during this year that Danny DeVito Day was declared in Jersey on November 17th. And on August 26th, YouTubers Logan Paul and KSI boxed and ending in a draw. But their younger brothers also fought, with Deji going up against Jake Paul, and Jake Paul won. It was also in 2018 that the end of the Avengers Cinematic Universe took place with the release of Avengers Infinity War, resulting in Thanos wiping out half of the universe. And to close off the 2010s, 2019 was a very mixed year. And to start off with sad, the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France burns down, toppling its spire and crumbling its roof. And climate change gets ever worse, and Greta Thunberg speaks out, inspiring millions of others to do the same. But now for the good. It was during this year that California finally relieved itself of its drought that plagued it for 7 years. The Avengers Cinematic Universe finally concludes with Avengers Endgame. And Old Town Roads by Lil Nas X breaks records by becoming the song with the longest run on the top of the boards, with a run of 17 weeks on the #1 spot. And the release of Joker was the first rated R movie to gross over $1 billion. On top of that, the internet was stricken with grief as T-Series passed PewDiePie for the most subscribed YouTube channel. And now we look to the future, and one of the most depressing matters of this new era has been the US-Iran crisis. The US-Iran crisis made many Americans fearful of an oncoming World War III. Luckily, escalations have died down, but it's still a pressing matter to this day. This new US-Iran crisis started when Donald Trump issued an airstrike killing Qasem Soleimani on January 3rd. This attack and assassination was in response to one civilian dying when Iran attacked a US embassy. In response to the death of Qasem Soleimani, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei called for 3 days of public mourning and a call of retaliation, stating his departure to God does not end his path or his mission, but forceful revenge awaits the criminals who have his blood and the blood of the other martyrs last night on their hands. To fulfill their promise of retaliation, Iran issued a strike against a US base, hurting 11 but killing none. As of the start of 2020, Australia, due to record-breaking heat, has been experiencing rampant bushfires. And as of January 14th, 2020, approximately 46 million acres of Australian land has been burned from these fires. And according to the LA Times, hundreds of millions of animals to the 1 billion are being killed from these fires. In terms of human fatalities, 27 have been killed. But despite the tragedy that has happened on Australia, many people overseas have pledged to help, such as Jeff Bezos, who promised to donate $690,000.